And good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our second 2015 Xanadu Gallery mentorship session with Judith Monroe. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm Jason Horsch, owner of Xanadu Gallery, and today is Tuesday, October 13th, 2015. It's been a crazy couple of weeks since we last met, and let's see if I can get video. There we go. And now I've got double video going. Hold on just a second here again. Once again, we're experiencing a few technical issues at the beginning. Had a hard time getting to the session. So we're just a minute late here, but we've got it all under control now and are ready to roll forward. As I was saying, we've got a couple of, or it's been a couple of crazy weeks. I actually was out of town last week. Carrie, my wife, and I snuck away to Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston, South Carolina for a much-needed getaway, and it was excellent. Lots of time to relax, and of course, whenever my wife and I are together, we're always bouncing ideas off one another, and the conversation never strays too far from business, but we did relax and had a good time, and then. Flew back on Saturday, and I think on the flight back, I had the typical sick travelers going along with you, and so now I've come down with a nice head cold. So if you hear me sniffling a little bit, or if my voice sounds just a little bit off, it's because I am slightly under the weather here. You might see some bags under my eyes here, but we'll muddle our way through with that, and we've got a lot of great content to talk about today, so I'll keep my energy levels up so that we can get through the session. Judith, great to see you. Hopefully you've had a couple of good weeks here.
Yeah, yep, I've been pretty busy. Can you hear me?
Yep, I've got you loud and clear.
Okay.
Yeah, and so just to kind of catch everybody up, and actually before we dive into things, I do want to go over a couple of quick reminders. So let me bring the screen back up here. The first is that all of these sessions are being recorded and archived on the broadcast page. And for those of you who maybe didn't get into the first session that we had a couple of weeks ago, I just wanted to make sure you know that, and in fact, let me pull it over here. You can just see on the mentorship broadcast page, which is most likely where you're watching this session right now, if you just scroll down, this is the current session, and if you scroll down, you'll see the archive section down below. And of course, right now it only has one video going in it, but each week we'll add, each session will add another video there. So keep an eye out for those. And if there's something you want to go back and reference, or a particular topic that we're covering that you want to go over again, you can go back to that page at any time during the mentorship and review those previous sessions. Also, just a reminder that our schedule for these is that we're going to be meeting or planning to meet every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. So if you just pencil that into your calendars, you should be up and ready for our future sessions. And of course, we'll let you know if there are any variations from that schedule. And then also I wanted to remind you, if you haven't already, and many of you have, but if you haven't, be sure and join our Google Plus community, our social network, if you will, for the mentorship. And there is a link to do that on the broadcast page. And it's a great kind of forum for you to be able to talk about the different subjects that we'll be discussing in the mentorship. It's an opportunity for us to get to know one another a little bit better. So, for example, and let me just pull that up as well here. After the last session, I requested that everybody post some kind of getting to know you images, and so we've got some great pieces, and you get a sense very quickly of the diversity of the different artists that are participating in the mentorship program. And following along. So it's a great way to kind of continue the discussion that we're starting here. And so with that, I want to kind of dive into our discussion today. And in the last session, we mentioned that one of our primary goals was going to be to get some artwork headed this direction to the gallery so that we can start working on promotion and kind of getting the initial kind of groundwork in place to be able to start selling some of Judith's work in Xanadu Gallery in our Scottsdale location. And so Judith and I have shared a few emails back and forth and started talking about that. But I thought it would actually be a good idea to kind of talk about that selection process as we're getting started. And so we didn't come to any, I'll say we didn't come to any final conclusions on what kind of artwork, and I kind of want to do that in the session today and talk a little bit about kind of what we're aiming for. And so to get started on that, I just want to share with you a little bit of what my typical process is as I'm onboarding a new artist in the gallery and kind of thinking about how to display that artist's work and what pieces will be appropriate for our gallery. I kind of want to give you some insight into how that process proceeds as we agree to represent a new artist. And so again, I want to bring you and share with you, bring up screen 2 here. This is a virtual view of our gallery space, and I thought it'd be fun to just kind of walk around the space a little bit so that you can get a sense of what it is that I'm aiming for in terms of putting together a body of work for the artists that I'm working with. And we'll see how the technical side of this works as we wander around. Let me see if I can make it a little larger here. So there are a number of different considerations that come into play when thinking about the artwork that I'm showing in the gallery. And the first, obviously, is that I have to think about my physical space, both in terms of how much work I can show, how many artists I can display at any given time, and then I also have to think about, okay, of those artists, how am I going to kind of divide that space up, and what kind of groupings am I going to do? And so that's kind of a constant thought process that I'm working through. As we proceed into our busy season, I'm kind of trying to anticipate and plan ahead how we're going to organize the gallery and how things are going to go on to display. And so, for example, and maybe it's helpful to just mention before we dive into that, I've got about 2,300 square feet of display space, which I have found allows me to show in the physical gallery a total of somewhere between 20 and 25 different artists, and that divided between painters, photographers, and other two-dimensional artists, and then sculptors and three-dimensional artists. And I like to have kind of a good mix. The other kind of big considerations are, I want to create a real experience for collectors who are coming into my gallery, whether it's a first-time collector walking in or a collector who's been in the gallery many times in the past. I want to ultimately I want to delight them with the experience that they're going to be having in the gallery. And so I want to bring together work that is a good mix of things that they might expect to see, along with some unexpected art. And I think that Judith's work, especially in this initial season, is going to fall into that unexpected category because it's something that's different in terms of both subject matter and style. And so it should draw some good attention. And then and then my next thought is, okay, how am I going to organize this work? What's going to be the process or the and again, I'm just going to throw in a caveat here that my brain maybe isn't up to full functional power here, so some words are going to slip away from me. But I want to think about the groupings and how I can create a kind of cohesive and engaging display of work. And what I found is that in most cases, if I can have a grouping of work for each artist, it's far more effective than having individual or just a couple of pieces by a particular artist. By having a good solid grouping of 5 or 6 or even 7 pieces, it draws people's attention and it starts to give them a little bit of context for understanding your work and kind of the range of work that you're doing. So on the screen now you're seeing an example of New Mexico artist Guijamet's work in the gallery, and this image that we're seeing is a little bit distorted because of the camera angle here, but you can get a sense that I've got several paintings. Well, I guess I've only got one painting. I've got several wall sculptures, and then I've got a couple of freestanding sculptures here. And the result of this is that when someone kind of comes around the corner and comes into this section of our gallery, they can't escape Guijamet's work. Now, they may or may not be interested in his style and subject matter, but they're going to, at least for the time that they're in this section of the gallery, they're certainly going to be paying attention to it. And, like I say, they're going to see a range of pieces here. And for those that are attracted to it, it kind of gives them some room to explore and think about and see some development through his work. And that kind of engagement is really powerful. We'll go look at another artist's work as I swing around here. And you'll see that we've kind of organized the gallery so that it's, I wouldn't say a maze exactly, but I definitely want to create pathways where there are various angles that you can come at artwork where you kind of see pieces poking around corners, and I found that that creating that kind of almost an exploratory environment is really helpful in creating engagement with our collectors. So here's another artist, Dave Newman. And once again, I've got a total of 6 pieces here, 7 if you count the guitar that's hiding behind the other one there. But again, a collector comes into this back part of the gallery and they can put almost their whole visual field and fill it up with Dave's work. And especially with the intensity of color and again the variety in work that's here, it really invites that kind of engagement. And so, as I'm thinking about, okay, what are the initial pieces I'd like to have from Judith, I kind of start thinking in terms of what would be kind of the ideal body of work to put together. How could we introduce some, some variety into the work that we have, while at the same time displaying a sense of continuity in the work, so that people can very quickly and easily identify that yes, this is all done by one artist. And kind of start to clue into what Judith's voice is and kind of what the underlying themes and narrative of her work are. And then that's an opportunity for us in the gallery, myself and my staff, to kind of step in and start to educate a collector about the artist and her or his work, and start to tell some stories about the pieces that maybe the artist has told to us. And so, it's just kind of a process of playing with and thinking about, how can I keep potential buyers interested and engaged, and truthfully, how can I keep them in the gallery longer? And I found that in most cases, if I'm going to create a sale, I really do have to keep the collector in the gallery for a significant period of time. We've done some kind of informal surveys of this. How long does it take us to generate a sale? And I found that it's between 35 and 45 minutes that a collector will, from the time they walk in the front door until the time they walk back out the front door with a receipt or a piece of artwork in their hand. That's how long it's going to take. And so, it's not like there's some magic correlation that if I can lock the doors and trap someone in the gallery for that long, then they're automatically going to purchase something. But rather that I found that if I can keep people engaged and provide them with interesting artwork and stories, that that will lead them down the path that it's necessary to go down in order to make a purchase. And so our goal now is to select some of Judith's work that will allow us to be able to do this. And so, Judith, maybe you can just spend a minute talking about, I requested that you put together some images for me to look at of some available pieces. Maybe talk about what your approach was to pulling those pieces together and talk about how you got those images to me.
Okay. Well, pretty simply, I just started with obviously what I have on hand, what's already created, and what I have in stock, like here with me in the studio, as opposed to something that's, sold or whatever. And then I was really thinking about the pieces that you've seen, that how you selected me in the first place, and so what you were familiar with. And I just kind of went with the ones that were primarily in that body of work and that I had on hand, and you had asked for a variety of sizes. And so I just kind of, that was basically how I chose it.
And then you, and I think this will be kind of interesting because as I work with a variety of artists and I request images, it's funny almost, just the myriad of potential ways that I might receive those images. Speaking from a kind of a technical standpoint, I might get a compact disc of images, I might get a thumb drive, I might get images via email, and your approach was to send them over in Dropbox.
Yes.
Which, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, it seems like it. I recently started using Dropbox, was introduced to it, well, I guess it's been a year or two, but still feels new to me. And it's just an easy way to put things, I can put things in the file or take it out or, whatever. So I really like Dropbox because it's simple and effective.
Yes. Yeah, and you were able, and here is the Dropbox page that she sent, and Judith was able to send to me just a link that took me right to this page of images. And so, if you're looking for a way to send images along. Now, the one disadvantage to Dropbox is that it doesn't give me right at my fingertips sizing or pricing information, which ultimately is great to have. On the other hand, I kind of do like just seeing the raw images too. That I kind of feel like that gives me an opportunity to kind of come at it, looking for just a gut reaction. Which pieces are most visually interesting to me? Which are most exciting, and then kind of work my way back to figuring out what's the mix of sizes. And so I'll tell you that the first one, and I think I can't remember if you posted this on the Google Plus page or if I saw it somewhere else, but the first one that kind of right away jumped out at me was this piece. Um,
Yeah, I did put that on the Google Plus page. That's one of my newest ones, actually.
and you know, this piece has some elements that I think make it very intriguing, and I think, uh, well, definitely I want this piece. You know, this is definitely a piece that I want to show in the gallery. And what I found is that my buyers, collectors that are coming into Xanadu, um, they like pieces, or tend to be drawn to pieces that have very strong visual elements and a strong element of design. You know, and that's not to say that every sale is something like that. But to me, this piece with the kind of the wings and you know, that the idea, the concept of the hanger there, um, uh, and Judith, maybe you can tell everybody the title of this piece and explain where that kind of came from.
Um, this piece is titled Faith, Hope, and Love, and it's kind of funny. I had this image in my mind long before I had any notion of what the title is. Usually, the two will kind of come together. But this one, I had to actually like search for the title, um, and and even though it wasn't that long ago, I can't tell you exactly how I went through that process. Um, I'll kind of go through a titling, if I haven't gotten things titled while I'm working on them, which sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't. I'll just start playing with ideas, I guess more verbally. As a visual artist, and we play with ideas and it's all like visual, and then I've got to like at a certain point convert that to a verbal, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and that's where
Um,
you kind of have an opportunity. I think in some ways, a great title is an opportunity to kind of introduce some, you know, almost poetry into the process. Really puts a
yeah,
cap on the piece.
yeah, and when I finally came upon, it was like for me the concept, faith, hope, and love. Those are three words, and then there's three things. The two wings and the tail are all giving, flight giving elements. So to me, that was how it all kind of gelled together. Was that the three words and the three main elements, and they're like there waiting on the hanger for me to like put them on. And that's the best that I can do as far as
Yeah, yeah, no,
explaining
no,
that.
that's well, and that's you know, with a piece like this, and in the gallery, and I could maybe pull that. You know, let me pull that back up actually. You'll see that we try to be very obvious, and I don't know if we'll be able to zoom in enough to get the detail here, but we try to be very obvious about where people can find the information about the artwork. And so, well, and apparently it's not going to let me zoom at all, but you've got a piece in the middle here, and to the right of it, we use clear Avery labels to put the title, sizing, artist's name, pricing, medium, all that information in the same place by all of the artwork, so that as people are walking around the gallery, they have easy access to that information if they want it. And I think with a piece like yours, you know, people are going to see that title, and again, it's creating that engagement and an interaction with the piece as they think about it. And you know, their explanation for that title as they look at the piece may be completely different than yours, which again, you know, kind of creates a fun dynamic of them bringing their own experiences and thought processes and philosophy to the artwork. And again, with a piece like this, when, you know, obviously is not going to be for everyone, but for the person that kind of tunes into that, and sees the title and it clicks with them, that's going to be a very powerful engagement. And So like I say, this one jumped out as just one that was clearly going to be one of interest for our audience. And then some other ones, we've got kind of a range of subjects here, from the specimens, which include, and you can correct me if I say, if I'm missing the path here, but there are the specimens, which are the birds and the butterflies, and some other insects. There are some pieces that have more landscape element to them, and some that really are almost, with the trees and that's, almost abstracted landscape imagery. And that range of subject matter works very well together, because your style and kind of your approach to your vision of the work and the palette that you're using and the medium are also consistent, that it allows for that range of subject matter. And so just to kind of go through, then I kind of started looking at the pieces and thinking, okay, I do want some variety and at the same time some consistency. So I picked out another couple pieces. This is another one that I felt was very strong. Now, and after doing this, I kind of started looking at the sizes then, and what my thought was on this piece. This is an 8x8, so it's a very small piece. It would be important for me to have, I would think, a couple of other pieces in the same scale that I could display at the same time that I'm showing this piece. And what I find is that often it's the case with smaller pieces, that if I do have a number of pieces that I'm showing in that same scale, people will often buy 2 or 3 pieces to create a kind of grouping.
I've had that happen with my work several times.
Yeah. So I would maybe have you help me pick out some companion pieces to this one. I'd say 2 companion pieces, and it would be great if you happen to have 2 other 8x8s that feel pretty consistent with this. If not, if it's in that same range, 10x10 or 12x12, we could kind of make that mix work as well.
They're definitely there in there.
So let's hop back over here. Yeah, and I think, kind of continuing on that train of thought, it might make sense to have the 3 of them be butterflies, if we could make that work.
Wow. If I were that foresightful when I was creating.
Yeah. Well, so here's a 16. Well, so even 1620 is still on the smaller end.
Yeah.
This is another 1620.
That's another 1620, yeah.
So I would almost say, if I had those 2 1620s and then that 8x8, that could be
right.
A
That's a 20x20.
2020. And then oops, I'm going to be one too far here. And then I definitely want, this is a piece that I would definitely want to have. This feels, again, very distinctive. You've got a little, it's a little different in terms of the kind of the intensity of the color and palette that's going on there. So I think that would add some nice variety. This piece was another one that I selected. This is an 8x10.
That's another baby.
Yes, yeah. So
it actually has one that's almost a good companion for that one. It's another little nest that's in there. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 down from the top left.
4 down. This guy?
Yeah, that nest. That's the same size.
Okay, perfect. And those have kind of that same almost misty.
Yeah. And I actually took better photographs of those today.
Perfect. So I think those would be a good a good companion set. And then the kind of the other remaining kind of the missing piece would be to have at least one larger work. Um,
Right.
and I kind of thought, looking at this one, this is a 30-30, so
Yeah.
this would definitely, in terms of the range of your pieces, be towards the larger end. And there are a couple reasons that I like to have that larger piece, and the first is visual. You know, it kind of creates a draw to a wall to have that bigger piece. It serves as kind of an anchor, and often I'll use that larger piece as my kind of my center and build my way out from the larger piece. The other big reason is that I really like to have on a wall a piece with a significantly higher price tag than the
Right.
other pieces on the wall. And by doing that, you kind of set your own little market, for that particular artist, and it creates, obviously it's great to sell that bigger piece too, but then it also creates a kind of reference point where someone can say, "Oh, I like that big piece. It's several $1,000s. But I also like this, the piece next to it that's a little bit smaller and is just $1,500." And people, it's amazing to watch people. They will justify their purchase and feel good about a purchase because the piece next to it was so much more, and they feel like they're getting a good value, or at least that the value that for their piece makes sense in terms of the range of pieces that they're seeing there. So I don't know, maybe give me some feedback, Judith, in terms of, and maybe you can point me to some other pieces. Is that the largest piece on
That's the
the...
largest piece that's there. I was just actually reworking a slightly larger piece of 40 by 40 that I didn't give you the image for because, like I said, I was kind of reworking it. So I think of all of the ones that are there, that is the largest.
Okay.
There's several 20 by 20s.
And so is the
Yeah.
the other large piece pretty close to being reworked?
Yeah. Yeah. It just needs varnish actually. And it's a giant nest though. So in that sense it's kind of different. But it's also got those 9 panels, like that tree does. It's another one of those.
Okay, yeah. So I'll definitely, I'd love to see that before we
Yep.
finalize the shipment coming over this direction. I do love the tree though, and I've had a lot of success selling trees over the years. It's a subject matter that a lot of people identify with. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely want to keep that one in the mix. And then the other thing that we kind of discussed a little bit by email, I had noticed in I think I saw it on your website that you had several of the desert pieces,
Yeah.
and for obvious reasons, that kind of subject matter makes a lot of sense in Scottsdale, and so you added, I think, these to the Dropbox so that we could take a look
Yeah.
at them.
Those 3 right there in the middle.
And you mentioned in your email that you're not really necessarily, that's not something that you're doing a lot of. Your focus is on more of the specimen pieces, which I think makes. Let me step back and reapproach that. It's often the case that my artists will come to me and say, Jason, what do you want? What kind of work would you prefer I be focusing on working on? And my approach and my answer to that question has always been, and I think always will be, do what you're most excited about. Do what's really moving you right now, and what you're feeling passion for. And I have found that passion comes through in the work, and that I'm always best at selling what you're most excited about. And so you won't hear me saying things like, "Oh, Judith, you did those desert scenes. I'm in the desert. You should do a bunch more of those." You know, if you're excited about the specimen pieces, I absolutely think you should be going down that path and pursuing it, and you know, doing more of that work. And at the same time, if there are some desert pieces that are available, I'll say, well, why not send those over my direction? We can sell
Right.
those, and once they're gone, they're gone. There won't be any more of those, but you know, it's subject matter, like I say, that just makes such perfect sense in the desert for us. So I would definitely, and these are, and you can correct me on this, are these all, so 20, 20, and 6 by 6. So they're fairly small pieces
Yeah.
anyway. So I would definitely definitely have you include those. And so, you know, kind of with the ones that we've just looked at, we've come up with a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 9 pieces,
Huh.
which is kind of exactly the range I'd like to shoot for. I usually like to have somewhere between 5 and 10 or 12 pieces on hand. And, you know, as we looked around the gallery, you saw that for a lot of the artists, I may not have that many on display, but you know, if at all possible, I like to have a good grouping on display and then a few pieces in reserve so that when we sell work, we can just instantly be back with new pieces on display, and you know, kind of never have blank wall space or have a chain reaction where I've got to move now to a smaller you know, a smaller wall and move things around. I just like to have a little bit of a buffer between the available pieces and you know, the ship time that it takes to get new pieces to the gallery. So I think we've got a great start there. Are there any other pieces? And let me pull us back up there. Are there any other pieces that you feel like, you know, Jason, you've got some good pieces selected there, but you've missed one of my favorite pieces that I know would look great in your gallery?
Actually, since you're mentioning that, that second one up there, is a tall, skinny, that one right there.
Yes.
I that is definitely one of my favorites.
And that's
That
a
I like right there.
36 by 12, which I love the fact that that format, you know, the narrow, tall format is different from any of the other formats that we have. You know, again,
Yeah.
in the sense of kind of building some diversity and range, I think that would be a good fit. So yeah, definitely we should throw that one into the mix as well. So what I'm going
Cool.
to do is after we finish today, I'll go back in and just pull all those images over into an email and shoot it over to you. And
Cool.
we also learned our lesson there in our emailing back and forth. Dropbox doesn't let you drag and drop into the email, so I'll just shoot over screenshots of the ones that I like. And then, if we can, you're working on that other piece. If you want to shoot an image of that to me when it's ready, the
Yeah,
other large piece.
I can put that in Dropbox today. That was one of the ones I
Perfect.
photographed today.
Oh, that'd be awesome. And then after we see that, we can kind of finalize our selections and
Okay.
go ahead and get things boxed up and on their way over here.
All right.
So, and then the other, you know, the other key part of that discussion then is that, and this is especially important for those of you maybe working with a gallery for the first time, is that I am a huge believer and advocate and will, I don't know if insist is the right word here, but I will strongly encourage you that as you begin working with a new gallery, you strive to have a good paper trail in place. You know, you want to start out by making sure that you have a good understanding of expectations, what the gallery's expectations are of you, you know, what your expectations are of the gallery. And so to that end, you know, most galleries that work on a consignment basis will have some kind of consignment agreement in place. And you know, that'll kind of cover the basic terms of your relationship. And so I'm going to be sending over by email to Judith our consignment agreement. I'll just give everybody a quick look at it here. I'm also going to post it to the broadcast page so that you can all take a look at kind of the details of the consignment agreement. And you can see it's about a page of medium-sized print here. And this comes from my having a relation. My wife's father is an attorney, and so I get all of the free legal advice and drafting of documents that I need. And so, you know, I'm able to kind of I was able to take my experience in the gallery business and kind of sit down with him, and we were able to kind of craft what I feel is a both concise but detailed consignment agreement, because I want to make sure that there are no surprises for anyone. And so it covers some of the basics, and as you look over it, you'll see that there's the usual legal mumbo jumbo of who's who's the consignee, and who's the consignor. And then it talks about, you'll be sending artwork to me. I'll display that artwork at my own expense. You retain ownership of the artwork, et cetera, until it's sold. And then kind of the important stuff begins in the third paragraph, where we talk about the commission percentages and the terms of payment. And definitely for anyone who's entering into a relationship with the gallery, that's where you're going to want to pay a lot of attention. Your eyes are going to go there first. And it's almost universal now that galleries are going to ask for a 50% commission on two-dimensional artwork, and anywhere between 40 and 50% for sculpture. So obviously you want to pay attention to that. Our consignment agreement says, and I can just read it to you here, the consignee agrees to keep accurate records of all sales of consignor's goods, and to render an accounting of all sales and make payment to the consignor within 30 days of any sale. And the kind of the thought process behind that, and this is pretty common in the gallery world, that they'll ask for that 30-day turnaround for sales, is that you want to be careful that you don't run into an issue where a client takes a piece, hangs it in their home, lives with it for a few days, you pay the artist, and then a week later the client comes back and says, I've been living with this, I've decided it actually doesn't work in my space, what can we do in terms of a refund or an exchange? And obviously things get complicated if you've already paid the commission to the artist. We've actually, though, even though this is still the language in my consignment agreement, we've, over the last several years, have taken a little bit different approach, because I understand how important it is for an artist to have the cash flow as quickly as possible. And so our approach now is, instead of waiting 30 days, we'll sell the piece of artwork, make arrangements for delivery or shipment, and then as soon as the piece has been delivered to the client's home, we'll pick up the phone, call the client, and this call is kind of acts as a continuing service call, and we'll just ask, did the piece arrive safely? Are you happy with it? How does it look? And in our experience, once a client says it arrived, it looks great, I love it, if we get that kind of reaction, then we can very confidently go ahead and have the bookkeeper write the checks and send them out to the artist. And so in most cases, our turnaround time for paying artists once the piece has been delivered is less than a week. Our bookkeeping day is Monday, and so checks usually will go out the Monday following that kind of confirmation from a collector. Some other key issues in the consignment, and probably good things for us to talk about, Judith, and in fact we may dedicate entire sessions to some of these topics later on, but Section 4 talks about our ability to offer discounts to clients. And we ask for the latitude to give up to 20% off the retail price in a sale. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot to do that. But the reason I ask for that 20% figure is because we have done a lot of work with designers and decorators over the years. In fact, I just sold 3 pieces this morning through a designer. And at least in our area, the designers expect that 20% courtesy discount. And so I ask for that in the consignment agreement. But what typically will happen is that if I'm working directly with a potential buyer who's not a designer, we kind of try and keep those discounts, if there's negotiation, more in the 10% range. And if it goes above that 10% range, I'll pick up the phone and call you and say, Judith, I've got a client who likes a couple of pieces. This is what they've offered. What do you think we should do? And I really, kind of the whole point of this consignment agreement is that we're entering this relationship as partners. And as artwork sells, we both benefit from those sales. And so I want to just make sure that as a gallery owner, we're treating you exactly as that, as a partner. You've entrusted us with your artwork, and with the responsibility to promote and sell your work. And so, I feel that it's important, as I work with my artists, to make sure that everything that we do is beneficial and in line with what the artist would want to do if he or she were selling it for herself. And then, as you proceed through the rest of the agreement, you'll see exciting things like you can inspect your artwork in the gallery at any time that you'd like to.
Every time I'm in Scottsdale.
Exactly. Or you can request an inventory from us. And, we'll talk about this later in the mentorship sessions. It's a good idea to really stay on top of and be organized about your inventory. It becomes complex and complicated as you start building relationships with galleries, especially if you're working with multiple galleries, to know where everything is and how long they've had it, and so if you have a good system in place, it is definitely going, in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of hassle and potential heartache if kind of have your finger on the pulse of all of your inventory. And my suggestion to artists is that you should definitely be auditing your inventory with your galleries at least annually, where you're sending them a list of, here's what I show in your inventory, can you just confirm that this is what you have, and let me know if there are any discrepancies. And that kind of annual audit really will it just helps everybody stay organized, and as organized as we hope to be as a gallery, there are definitely times where a piece is sold and we forgot to mark it sold in our inventory system. We send a check out to the artist and took care of everything on that end, but somehow forgot to mark that it was sold. So it's still showing up on the website. It's still showing in our inventory records, and a client calls and says, I'm interested in this piece, and now we're madly hunting it down and can't find it, and it takes some legwork. So, even in spite of your best efforts, there are going to be times when pieces kind of not fall through the cracks exactly, but your organization just falls down a little bit. And so doing those regular audits gives you that opportunity to get everything back in line and make sure you have control of that inventory. So anyway, those are kind of some key things. The other key element, and any time you're working with a gallery, you want to pay special attention to this. In my consignment agreement comes in paragraph 6. And this is the exclusivity clause, where it talks about, I want to be your sole representative. And in this case, I'm asking for the state of Arizona which is my attempt to ask for the moon, and if I need to, I negotiate and say, oh, you want to show in Sedona or Tucson, that's fine. We can kind of
Or if I'm
modify that.
already in Sedona.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that kind of points to another issue with the consignment agreement as you're beginning working with a new gallery. If you have questions about an element of the consignment agreement, or something you don't understand, or maybe there's something that you're not comfortable with or don't agree with, or just something that logistically won't work. I'm already showing in Sedona. How can I give you exclusivity for the state of Arizona? There's room to negotiate and work on those details, and you just should never hesitate to say, this just won't work with what I've currently got going on. Is there any way that we can modify it and update it and make it work for our scenario? There are going to be some things that galleries are going to be reluctant to change. It's unlikely that any gallery will say, oh, sure, Judith, you want to make 80% and we'll make 20% on the sales. Sure, why not? The consignment percentages and even discounts and those kind of things, that they've kind of slowly become industry standard. And even though the language in a consignment agreement could shift from one gallery to another, those basic tenets of the agreement are going to be fairly consistent across all the venues that you start to work with. So I will, like I say, I'll post this, a blank version of our consignment agreement to the broadcast page, so that you can look that over. And if as anyone who's following along, if you have questions about the consignment process or questions about the art selection process, as you can see, it's kind of organic. But if you have questions about that, feel free to email me at jason@artbusinessacademy.net. That's the email address I'm using for these sessions, and I'll be happy to take your questions, and in our next session I can respond to or answer any of those questions that you have. And then, Judith, I'll send you an actual executable copy of the consignment agreement, with all the blanks filled in with our names and all that kind of thing. And you can look that over. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll already go in and update the exclusivity question to make room for you to show in other places in Arizona. And what I'll do is just change that. I want to be your sole representative in the greater metropolitan Phoenix, Scottsdale area. Obviously galleries are reluctant to compete with themselves in their same market. So you'll find that most galleries ask for some form of exclusivity that way. And then in the next session, then I'll also show you, hopefully by then we'll kind of have artwork either headed this direction or most of the way here, or at least in the process of having that happen. And I'll show everybody the consignment schedule that we use. So the consignment agreement that I showed you is kind of the general umbrella document that kind of covers the terms of our relationship. And then we also provide our artists with a schedule which shows each individual piece, our inventory number for it, the size, pricing information, and all of that, so that you can then make sure those are all accurate, that they match up. We each sign a copy of it. That goes into our records, and then whenever artwork moves out of inventory, is returned to you, or if we send it on to another gallery, we do a schedule for that as well, so that there's always a sheet of paper marking every inventory event, the receipt of a piece of artwork, or the return of that piece of artwork. And again, just in terms of kind of keeping things organized and chasing away any confusion that can occur with inventory, that's a great idea to have that paper trail that you can follow and track down all of the artwork. So you'll kind of get to see that whole process as we bring the artwork into inventory. And then also in the next session, I'd like to start diving into some preparation for promoting you and your work to our collectors. And so kind of down that vein, and this may be over the next couple of sessions, we'll want to look at your biography, artist statements. We'll take a glance at the resume as well. And just kind of start thinking about all of that narrative that we want to create, the story that we want to tell to our collectors, and the goal will be to be moving towards some promotional pieces that we can put out to our collectors either via email or physical mail. And so we'll kind of start that ball rolling forward with process. And my encouragement is going to be to everyone that's following along to be doing exactly the same things in terms of their own preparation for marketing your work. And so I'll be giving you kind of step-by-step guidance through that process. So that kind of, I don't know where the hour goes. Just
For real.
flies right by, but that gets us to the end of this session. Thanks again, Judith. We're looking forward to, and I've been, I showed the images of the work that you sent over to my staff and to Carrie, and we're just excited to get things rolling. Our season, even though typically our busy season doesn't start until the end of October, sales have already been very strong, so it hopefully portends a great season coming up, and hopefully we can kind of get you into the swing of that and get some artwork into collectors' homes and get them enjoying it. So,
all right.
Get that ball rolling. Thanks everyone for joining us for this session. We'll be back together. Today is the second Tuesday, so we'll be back together 2 weeks from now on the fourth Tuesday, which should work out to be, I believe, the 27th. I will send out a reminder. I just said that and I realized, Jason, you better really check that before you commit to saying the 27th. It is the 27th. That's 2 weeks from now. And we'll look forward to seeing you all then. And like I say, if you have any questions, be sure and just shoot me an email at that jason@artbusinessacademy.net email address, and I will respond to those in the next session. Thanks, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Okay.